Hello, my name's Amanda. Welcome to my channel. We're going to talk about microdosing psilocybin mushrooms for PTSD. I'm going to talk about 5 things that I learned personally. We're going to jump into some of the work of Natalie Ruiz, who teaches extensively on this and does coaching. We're going to talk about the 5 levels of microdosing as outlined by plant medicine people. So if you're somebody who's planning to microdose, you can kind of decide, okay, out of the 5 levels, how seriously do I want to take it? So, jumping right in, I started working with mushrooms in, I believe it was 2016. I can't remember exactly. I started working with a high dose. There was less on the internet about this at the time. You had to kind of look for it. It was a pretty big experience, but I did set it up ritually with a set and a setting and an intention, and it was a pretty incredible experience actually. And it led to breaking through some type of barrier with my belief in myself about drawing. I had never been able to draw in my life. Didn't think much of it, whatever. Stick figures is fine. And then the next day after my mushroom ceremony, my personal mushroom ceremony, I saw this vase of flowers in my kitchen. And I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed a pencil and a paper and I was able to draw it. And I've never been interested in art in my life, but that started a whole journey with art. So mushrooms can do very unexpected things when we open ourselves to to their healing powers, and we don't try and control everything, but we put ourselves in a position to learn and receive. I've got many other stories of how they've supported me, but that was pretty profound for my first one. And then fast forward to using them in a microdose. I started using them in a microdose last year, and specifically with the intention for PTSD healing. And they have been really, really incredible and helpful. And 5 ways I want to mention here are also on my blog, which I will put in the description. But basically, jumping right in, number 1 is, renewed courage about dreams and goals. Renewed courage about dreams and goals. So if you're someone who suffers with PTSD or complex PTSD, you know that sometimes we forget about goals that we have set because anxiety and triggers get in the way. It seems like this idea that we had, there are so many mountains in between us and that. There's so many reasons why it wouldn't work out. We don't even want to think about it because it seems like it's a failure from the start. This is the kind of thing that happens in the brain of someone with PTSD sometimes. So in the microdose, I noticed a renewed courage around dreams and goals that I had forgotten about. And this is really exciting because you don't get high on a microdose. You shouldn't get high on a microdose. You're going to notice maybe a slight shift in your body and mind, but it's going to be really slight. But one of the slight things that changes is that part of you that's like, that's not going to work out. You don't have it in you to do that. It would be so hard. It's just not there. And what is left is the real you. So what is left is brainstorming and ideas and making plans and kind of like an inner smile about how could this possibly turn out for the best. The best way to work with this renewed courage about dreams and goals, because it's not exactly permanent, this is what I've found, is while you're in the microdose and you are making note of something that you want to do, making note of one of your inspirations, make a move on it by, sending an email, making a reservation, signing up for a course, like booking a flight, whatever it is to kind of like set the ball in motion. You don't have to have the whole plan. But while you're with that renewed courage, do make a move on it so that by the time, you're not in the microdose, things are already kind of lining up for you. The ball is already rolling, and then you kind of went in with it with a lot of positive intention, and the universe can kind of help you like get to the next steps. Number 2, small ego gets quiet. So this is similar. In complex PTSD, we have sometimes a small ego that is really upset easily, wants to control things, sometimes has intrusive thoughts. What I noticed is that voice, the volume on that voice went turned down in a big way. Seemed like it was way far away, like a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10. So, it still needed to be observed. It still needed to kind of be rerouted, anything that was untrue. But you could kind of hear it coming. You know what I mean? Kind of like a train that's like far off. It's like, ooh. It's like, oh, the small ego's coming. It's going to come and warn me about something, but it's just a whisper. It's just a whisper. I've got time. So you've got to get time to ground in and regroup and be like, I'm actually okay. And then you can kind of reroute it. Be like, oh, no, it's okay. Not today. And it's not a big fight. It's just like, and this is great practice because then when we're not microdosing and we're at like a very sudden 9 out of 10 or a very sudden 10 out of 10, which is just the case for PTSD, we can be like, you know what? I was able to reroute that really easily. And just because it's super loud in this moment and I'm not microdosing, I know that it doesn't have to control me because I was able to like not be controlled by it, when it was a 1 or a 2 out of 10. And so we have this new fresh memory in the brain and the mind that this is actually not as a big deal as it seems. So yeah, brain patterns, PTSD brain patterns can be altered. And along with that, like sometimes I would get like a blast of energy hit and get PTSD symptoms. I feel it sometimes like a pain in the gut, but I was actually just experiencing it as like a buzzing instead of a regular sharp pain in the gut, pain in the gut. It was like a buzzing sensation. It wasn't painful. It was like, whatever. You know what? I can live with that. That's again like a 2 out of 10, but on the physical. And then when you're not microdosing and it's a 10 out of 10 pain in your gut or in your chest or whatever, you're just kind of like, whatever, I can hold that. I've demonstrated my ability to hold that trigger when I was with the mushrooms, and I'm going to demonstrate that ability to hold that now. I love the next one. Number 3. Am I number 3? I think so. The inner parent is here. So the only way I can put this to words is, when someone who really supports you and really loves you, like genuinely, gives you a big hug, you feel their arms around them, and then on the inside, you just feel like I'm not alone in this moment and I'm really supported. Well, I experienced the microdose as though I was getting that big hug by someone who was really supportive, but with no physical arms around me. It was just the internal. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm all blissed out. Oh, I feel so great because I'm on mushrooms. No, it was just like this deep support. Like a part of me, my inner parent, who really is me, is right here. And because the chatter and the triggers from the PTSD are turned down so low, I can experience the presence of this inner parent who is actually always here. So this is really beautiful. And then again, when you are not microdosing, even if you are triggered, you can be like, okay, yes, this trigger is happening and it's really, really horrible. But I also know that within me is an inner parent. I just can't notice or feel that inner parent. I'm going to try and go and find that actually. You can put your hand on your heart and you can be like, yeah, I'm going to choose to go back to that because I know about that inner support that I felt. And so we're kind of like remapping what's available and inside our own being. And then we've got this ability to choose later on because we've had these great kind of like illuminating experiences within the microdose. Number 4, the ability to gain from pain. So chronic pain is something that has been part of my life on and off. And sometimes we don't have an answer for chronic pain. In the microdosing, the chronic pain didn't go away. I wasn't magically fixed up and healed. But what I did notice was that I felt the inner strength, the massive amount of inner strength to hold that pain, to be present with that pain, to be a really, really strong container for the experience of the pain that's temporarily passing through. With that support part of me holding the pain, there's less resistance. And most of us know that our resistance to pain that we're experiencing makes it worse. So even if your pain is like a 7 out of 10, it can go up to a 10 out of 10 because our natural resistance to the pain. So this support of being a strong being that is able to hold difficult pain takes away that resistance, and then the pain actually stays at a lower number on the scale. This was really interesting and also unexpected. And number 5, I guess it kind of goes in with number 1, but wanting to lead your own life from a place of inspiration rather than a place of ego. So sometimes when we're creating something or we've got this idea, there's a part of us that is like full of inspiration and just wants to create. And then there's another part of us that's thinking, oh, could I make money from this? Could I get attention from this? You know, would certain people like and accept me more because of creating this? You know, we have this ego that kind of comes in and it feels like it's kind of like wrecking things. If we just want to create from a place of inspiration. But within the experience of the mushrooms, there's not this egoic drive, but there's just the inspire half of it, which is really beautiful. And so this isn't really to do with PTSD particularly, or not directly, but wanting to lead your life from a place of inspiration only and not egotism. And, you know, we can't always live like this. We're not supposed to always live like this, but it is kind of like a welcome break to know that the true, real part of you is not performing or creating from a place of egotism. The true part of you is really always creating and performing and doing from a place of inspiration. It's just kind of like the ego part of it that kind of comes in with a bit of a lower vibration add-on at the end, but the real you is coming from a place of inspiration. So you might have an opportunity within microdosing to experience that real you that is only coming from a place of inspiration. Okay, Natalie Ruiz. I love her work. I'm going to link her webinar in the description. She talks about mushrooms, microdosing mushrooms, from a shamanic perspective, which is the same perspective that I hold. And when I say shamanic perspective, I'm saying connecting with the mushrooms in a sacred way, as though the mushroom is a spirit, a plant spirit, or a sacred consciousness that can work with our intention. So with my microdosing for PTSD, my intention was I want to be more grounded. So a short intention is best, not like I want to get $1 million and a new house. Like, this is not the kind of thing it does. It works with very clear, very short intentions that have to do with soul. So when we're microdosing with mushrooms in a sacred way, this is not like popping them like a pill or like a supplement, because they're not going to really work for us if we do that. There's a very limited effectiveness they can have if we are just popping them like a pill or a supplement. She talks about the 5 levels of microdosing as this. Number 1, popping them like a supplement or a pill. Some people do that. So that's kind of like on like the base level. Number 2, setting an intention. So like I said, like a 1-sentence intention, like it could be anything. Heal my heart. Show me what I need to see. Help me be more grounded in my life. Help me focus on the things that matter and leave aside the rest. Just a good 1 sentence and then stick with that. That's level 2, setting an intention. Number 3, setting an intention plus journaling and dream analysis. So we're going a little bit deeper into our reflection. We're doing some journaling every day, and hopefully recording dreams if we have our dreams, and just seeing like what's all connecting here. Number 4, all of the above: intentions, journaling, and dream analysis, plus coaching. So checking in with a coach around your intentions, what you're discovering journaling, what maybe is challenging, what's coming up for you, bringing that perspective from somebody else in who understands mushrooms and who can support you. And number 5 is all the above, plus a large dose journey, a high dose mushroom journey. And that, again, might be something you plan out with your coach. That might be a ceremony that you attend. But yeah, that's number 5. So back to Natalie's work. She talks about how we learn to sit with our issue, to be present for and experience our issue, and not feel like we need to fix it within the container of microdosing. If people think that they're going to get fixed by the microdosing, they're probably wrong. We're learning how to understand and hold space for ourselves with the issue that we have. That's what we're doing. We're coming to work with the mushroom to alchemize difficult feelings. They are a catalyst for pushing us forward. They're not always lovely, even in things that I shared. I know that maybe came across in some ways as easy and light, but there were difficult experiences in there. They are a catalyst for pushing us forward, though, because we are kind of amplifying the parts of our life that are issues so that we understand them better, we can hold them better, and then we can still march on. They were popularized by the late Maria Sabina, a Mazatec woman from Mexico, from Oaxaca. She is responsible for the popularization of mushrooms in the West. I can't remember the man's name, but there was a reporter that a few decades ago visited her in Mexico where she was holding ceremonies. He attended a mushroom ceremony, and then he wrote an article in Life magazine about his experiences. And then after that, there was a massive popularization of psilocybin mushrooms in America and the West. It's a complex topic because I think that there was a lot of commercialization and issues in her village after the fact because so many people were suddenly coming. That's a whole other story. But I wanted to mention her. Natalie mentions her because she was the real deal. She was a real medicine woman. She was a healer. She used the mushrooms to go into an altered state of consciousness and understand what her patient needed to know or what they needed to do through her relationship that she had built with the mushrooms. The mushrooms work with our subconscious mind and can unveil challenging things. Old memories may surface. They teach us how to sit with discomfort, which results in us growing beyond our PTSD. So PTSD will probably be something that's always with us in one degree or another, but we have with mushrooms an opportunity to go beyond it, to be able to hold the sensations of the PTSD and still live our life and follow our inspirations. And that's what's something that's so precious about the mushrooms. The mushrooms bridge the physical and the spiritual. So we're not totally in an altered, with microdosing, we're not in a totally altered level of consciousness, state of consciousness. We're still very aware of what's going on. In a microdose, we're not high. We're just a little bit altered. We're mostly in the physical reality. We're just kind of getting like a little bit more insight into ourself and our issues. So we got a little bit more leaning into our subconscious mind, especially if we're working with journaling and dream analysis and coaching. They can connect us with past loved ones. I've had several experiences being connected with deceased people that I never thought that I would be connected with. One time I was connected with the energy of a deceased woman that I went to high school with that I hadn't spoken to in 25 years or really thought about. And she was looking for help. She was distressed. There was a part of her, her soul had moved on, but there was a part of her energy that was distressed and was looking for support to go to the light. So if that ever happens to you, you can just like redirect that energy towards God and the light and explain that you are light, but you are not the source of light. So you want to move them on. I've also had some really beautiful messages to give to other people, like a deceased person whose family member there was a message for. That can happen in mushrooms. Yeah. Mushrooms grow in a colony. They don't grow in separation in general. So they really represent us being able to not only connect the different parts of our brain and the different parts of us that have been split off in different directions through trauma, they can also help us connect to other people and find our way into community. And this is not something we can plan out. It's something that just happens sometimes. You know, you start working with the microdose and then suddenly you're going to some event, you know, where you really find a sense of community and you didn't plan it out, but it just happened that way. And microdosing can kind of bring in the magic of that, of synchronicity. They will meet you where you are at. So, you know, somebody who's been microdosing a long time, they're going to be working on different things, but the mushrooms are going to meet you specifically where you are at. They're really good with that. And the journey will look different. Your journey is going to look very different from other people's journeys. Like I was saying, these are the things that happened to me, but I have no idea what will happen with you because, you know, you're a different person and you're working on different things. So that's the magic of it. And they're going to show up with what you need and not what you want, even if you set an intention, which is pretty much the case for most plant medicines. They heal in order of priority. So you can set an intention that you want to work on something, and then like some really distressing thing comes up in your microdosing that seems to have nothing to do with your intention, but sometimes they're trying to show you what's in the way of you realizing your intention. They're trying to clean out the blockages between you and that intention. So that's kind of like part of the journey of understanding that sometimes intentions are not straightforward. Sometimes it can be tricky to get where we're going, but if we keep going and putting one foot in front of the other and trusting this process, then we will get to that intention. But spirit heals in the order of priority. We need to establish safety, especially if we have a history of PTSD. And how do we do that? We want to have a really good baseline and understand what keeps us feeling the most safe. So like, where on earth and with whom do you feel the most grounded and safe? And just kind of like, you know, call that feeling up in your body. Like, how does that feel? Well, we want to kind of go into a mushroom experience from that place. We don't want to go in from a really heightened place. So it doesn't mean you have to be well or perfect to microdose, but you need to at least start to develop that relationship with safety and prioritize the safety of your inner child in life so that you have a nice soft baseline for working with the mushrooms. And we're not always mentally prepared. You know, sometimes we have to wait. Sometimes we have to say to ourselves, hey, this is something I want to do, but I need to work on having a more prepared mind. I want to work on the ability to call up peaceful, loving emotions towards myself from scratch. And once I've learned that, which doesn't take that long, you know, once I've learned that, then I'm going to start microdosing because I want to have that resource to come back to if I start to feel unbalanced. Taking that slow approach. I really believe in starting with like the super, super, super small dose. Who cares if you don't feel anything? Maybe take a few doses, you know, a few days apart where you're on the super, super small dose and you don't feel anything. And in this way, you're kind of developing a relationship of trust with the mushrooms. Like, you know what? Even though I didn't feel anything, I now know I'm okay to take a microdose, a small low dose microdose, and then move from there. And then that inner child can kind of like slowly ease their way into microdosing. Working, if you're inside the home, working in a decluttered space. This is huge. Everything gets amplified and our mind can get kind of like overstimulated if we're in a cluttered space. So do yourself a favor and be in a decluttered home. And then what are your personal ways to shift energy? I know how I can shift energy. So like if you're feeling uncomfortable on the microdose, you want to kind of have a list of things that you do personally to shift around the energy. I like to sing. I like to tone. I have mantras. I have medicine songs that I sing. I like to blow smoke, sage and tobacco. You can pray. You can play music. If you're not a singing person, you might have a playlist that makes you feel really grounded and safe. So, whatever it is for you, kind of have those things to go to so that if you feel unbalanced, you're like, oh, this is how I'm responding to shift up the energy. When you are journaling, a really nice way to kind of organize yourself, it's very simple, is to have like emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. And just kind of like have a column for each, and then make notes of what came up in each of those different categories. Sometimes only physical comes up, and that's okay. But that can kind of like help you see when you look over your journal what the mushrooms are actually doing in your body. How did each category come up? And then if you do get triggered, if it does seem like, oh, I took this microdose and it's too much, that's very normal. We're kind of getting used to our doses. We're trying to find out what's right for us personally. So if you do get triggered, slow down the pace, lower the dose. And also, it can be a message to slow down the pace of life. Sometimes when things are getting really fast and you're on a microdose and you're like, things feel really fast, we have to like look to a deeper meaning. Like, is this amplifying how fast I'm moving around in life? And there are some things that you just don't want to do on a microdose. Like, I wouldn't microdose on a day that I'm going grocery shopping. The bright lights and all the people, it's not really conducive to the work that we're doing. We want to have like quietness and nature, soft lighting, not a lot of things to do that day because we want to be able to kind of tune in and like catch the real subtleties that are happening in our body and our mind. And sometimes, yeah, if you don't feel anything, if you take the microdose and you're like, I didn't feel anything, that might be the message too. It might be the message that, okay, you are ready to take a higher dose next time. Or maybe you didn't feel anything because you were so busy, right? So maybe you take the same dose next time, but you carve out a lot more time for yourself and see if you do feel something. So in my opinion, microdosing psilocybin mushrooms is a really great way to work with psychedelics in a really subtle and controlled way. And they're fine for people who have no previous experience with psychedelics. Again, you're not going into like a hardcore psychedelic experience here. You're mostly in control and you're mostly in your body. And yeah, you're encouraged to live your normal life other than being like super busy. And there are lots of different schedules that people recommend for the microdosing, like how many days a week to take them and all that kind of thing. My recommendation for someone just starting out is the Fadiman protocol, Fadiman. And this is taking the microdose, setting your intention, and then having 2 days, the 2 following days you don't take the microdose. And those are days where you might reflect or journal. And then on day number 4, taking it again. And then kind of following that routine. That's a great way to start. You can work your way up to something different if that's really working well for you and you're kind of eager to try more. Beyond that, you can do like 5 days of the week and then take 2 days off. I have found that for me personally, that's too much. That's plenty. I like the Fadiman protocol, at least right now in my life. And yeah, if you've got any more questions about microdosing or you'd like to talk about microdosing or integrate some microdosing, my coaching website's also in the description. But do check out Natalie's webinar, which is in the description as well, because she talks about this in more depth and more detail. And she's a really precious person. I've done coaching with her as well. So I recommend her work. And I think that's it. If you have microdosed mushrooms and you've used them with ritual and intent, I would love you to share in the comments. Share with everybody what you've experienced, what's worked, what's not worked. We would love to learn from everyone's experience on here. So yeah, thanks again for being here, and journey well.